So welcome back again. In this lesson, we're going to talk about enums or enumeration in Kotlin, which is very similar to all the other programming languages. If you're new to programming and you're wondering what an enum basically is, enum is simply a way to iterate between the different ways of a variable. What do I mean by that? Let's say you have a variable that's Boolean. The Boolean can be either true or false. There is no other way around it. But let's say you have a string value. That a string value could be hello, it could be Adam, it could be Vancouver, it could be Steve, it could be any value. But what happens if you want to limit it? You want to have only 4 ways for your string. Let's say your string is meant to be east, south, west, or north. Only these 4 are acceptable. So in those kind of situations, we use an enum. So basically it takes a variable and makes that variable only accepted by certain values. So let's see how we're going to do all of these things. I'm going to head into Android Studio. I'm going to make my new application. I'm going to call it enums. And in my enums application, what I want to be doing is at the very beginning, once the application loads, I want to write myself an enum class, which is Kotlin's way of making enums basically. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and say I have an enum class. Let's call this class direction, because we talked about, north, south, or whatever. So I'm going to say there is north, there is south, there is west, and there is east. So any variable of the type direction can only take one of these 4. It cannot take anything else. So how do we actually make a variable of this? Just like you would make a variable out of anything. In my onCreate, I'm going to say val, let's call it my direction. It becomes direction dot, which one do you want? Let's say I want east, for instance. So now I have a variable of the type direction with the value east. And the only other values it can take are west, south, or north. So you cannot put any other thing in it. Now, how could we use this? We could, for instance, do an if statement. So I'm going to go ahead and say if my direction was direction dot south, for instance, do something about it. Or better, you could actually do a when, which is usually what we do with enums. So I could say when, and in when I'm going to say my direction, and then I'm going to have to actually introduce the cases for it. The cases for it in this case are going to be direction that's east, which in that case you do something, for instance, print ln it's east. I'm going to duplicate this a few more times. Let's say west, let's say it prints it's west, and I actually don't care about the rest of them. Let's just say else, and the else is going to be print not west or east. Let's say I only cared about west or east. And that's pretty much how you make an enum. Enums are surprisingly, powerful and important in writing your languages. For instance, if you have a situation such as our social media application, you could have an enum class for people, and I will explain to you what do I mean by that. So let's say enum class people status. So what do you want to get in this status? There are few situations. Friend, so this person is a friend of us. Another situation is a stranger. This is someone that we absolutely don't know. Another situation could be that this is a user that you have requested friendship from them. Another situation could be that this is a user that has rejected your request. And I actually can't think of anything else right now, but you can see what I mean by it, that there could be only one of these many situations. They can't be more. They can't be like hundreds of different conditions. There's only a few of those, and because of that, we can actually use an enum to take care of what we are trying to do. Keep in mind the enums can be a lot more extensive than this. For instance, I could actually write a color enum. I'm going to say enum class. Let's call it color enum. And then I could actually enter a value. So I could say value for the RGB if of the type long, for instance. And then I could actually have the values in here. I could say red, and then for the red, you actually have to feed in the RGB for it. And the RGB of it, I'm actually, from what I know, it would be a format like this. Red would be FF, and then 0000. And if I'm not wrong, you have to multiply a 0 byte. So which is exactly how you would get the red color, for instance, and then blue that would be again 0, and then red would be 0, green would be 0, and then blue would be ff, and that would be another one. Okay, I have to put a comma in here actually. And then the next one may be green, which is exactly the same formula as before. So 0 by 0, ff, and 0. So you could actually make enums that are more extensive. So the values in them, you can define them manually. You could also access the raw values of the enums. I leave that to our future lessons when we actually need to use them. For now, it's a matter of getting an introduction to what enums are. So basically, enums are ways of maintaining only several possible options for a variable. And then we can obviously use them to make our own variables, as well as doing if statements and conditionals to test them for the variable that we are interested in. So that is enum. Let's keep it up to here, and I'm going to actually leave it in here. And let's move on to our next lesson.